Testing. Okay. Testing. Test. Are we live? Testing 1 2. Hi guys. Not sure if we're live. We're having so many difficulties today. Let me just get rid of this. Put it there. There we go. Testing. I have an ad playing. Testing 1 2. Are we live? Is it working? All right, it is working. Okay, we're on. Cool. It is working. Hallelujah. But I don't know if it's HD though. Let me just check the quality. God, this new OBS is crazy. Let me see if I can bump this up. Let me check if it's HD. All right, there we go. Oh, we have 720p. Okay, 720p I can work with. All right, so guys, welcome to VR Essentials. How you all doing? Okay, Lucas is already here, so let me just admit him. So what I'm gonna do, guys, is normally we were supposed to start at 11:30, just FYI. But because we're late, what I do in the live streams is I normally go through all the comments, all you guys read all your comments, all those kind of things. So we're gonna do that after the live stream, guys. So do watch the live stream until the end, until after we're done with the interview with him. I'll read all your comments that you guys have been leaving during the week, and we can do an AMA together as well. All right, let me admit him. So view. All right, admit. There he is. Here's Lucas Martel from Walkabout Mini Golf. Hello, sir. All right, let me just make sure I got the. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Let me actually grab my headphones from the other room here.
All right, let me just turn this off. There we go. All right, so he's just coming online now. Let me put the audio louder so that you guys can actually hear him when he's back. So, very exciting, guys, because today we're going to be asking him a ton of different questions. So do leave your, do put your questions in the chat. I will read the chat, everybody. So, you know, we can, and I will scroll up and down the chat. I will moderate the chat as well as do the interview. If you guys want to be a moderator for future, you know, live interviews with all these cool guys, please send me an email at vressentials@yahoo.com. You know, that you want to be a volunteer. And, you know, so we can grow the community and the community can get involved and you know, be part of the expansion of VR Essentials. Send me an email, VR Essentials, I'll put it in the chat. vressentials@yahoo.com. So if you guys want to be a volunteer, do send me an email and then we can make it happen for future things. All right. Mr. Martel's back.
Sorry, I'm having audio issues.
Oh man, I think today is technology issue bug day. I literally was just able to get OBS up and running. I installed like 10 different versions. I was freaking out. I was going so fast you could only see, I was like this. But actually I'm moving really fast, like the Flash. I'm moving so fast you can only see this. How are you?
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try a different pair. These things are just not working.
Okay. So Mr. Martel is he's trying to get his audio working as well, which is pretty funny because I've been trying to get OBS to work. So guys, he'll be here momentarily. So he's trying different headphones. So
Gotta
he can
go
hear
old
us.
school.
And chat, if guys in the chat, let me know if his audio is okay. If you can't hear him, let me know, guys, and then we can make the adjustments accordingly. But you guys should be able to hear him okay.
Yeah. How about now?
I can hear you absolutely great.
Okay. Awesome. That's working better for me now. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got the analog.
Yeah, I had
The
to go old
analog
school on
never
this one.
fails.
It doesn't. The Bluetooth, it amazes me how terrible the Bluetooth headphones still are. They just cannot figure out how to connect and stay connected.
Exactly. In the year of 2023, we still have.
We complain. There's about 30 of us almost now working on Walkabout, and we've calculated at one point just how many man hours per month we lose just to people trying to fix their audio for calls or whatever. It's a lot.
Is it
like,
playable with is Walkabout Mini Golf playable with Bluetooth headphones?
I mean, I don't know personally. That would really just be up to the headset makers. I mean, if it works with Bluetooth, then it should work just fine.
Right.
So we've always,
if you're hitting the ball and then you like book, and then you hit book like 2 milliseconds or a second later, that could be weird.
Yeah, I don't think there's that much. The delay doesn't seem to be an issue, but
Okay.
I mean, I've always just Quest 2 has been kind of the main one that we play with, but we've got people testing on everything from PlayStation, Pico, Rift, Index, all sorts of different things that we've got people playing on. And I think that most people just tend to use the connected ones because they're pretty decent. The mic especially on most of the newer headsets is fantastic. It's just got enough of the canceling that it sounds almost like your nice podcasting mic, just a notch below that.
So how's it been going with because you guys were working last time I saw you was almost a year plus ago, and you were more with Meta back then. So now you're on the Pico. How's it been going? I mean, you've been on Pico now for quite a few months, right? Almost at least half a year or something. So around there, I guess.
Yeah.
How's it been going?
So,
what's the difference between working with them, working with Meta? Tell me your story, your adventure with Pico.
Yeah, I mean, we're on several different headsets right now. So I mean, I think that the Pico tends to operate in just a fairly different way than Meta. The hardware is fairly similar. I think the thing that's been most challenging for us lately is just now that there's more people entering the market, there's more headsets with a wider variety of features and performance specs, and just, things feel like they're kind of moving in the direction of getting a little bit more disparate between different platforms.
Right,
and that's a real challenge for developers, just because, we want to sort of like build something and release it on all the platforms and for it to be as like homogenous as possible. But I know that's just sort of like, there's all of the different platforms have different things that are working for them or not working for them. So so it's becoming a bit more of a having to remember all of the different flavors of, how is this going to work? I remember the Knuckles controllers are a particular sort of like bane of mini developer existence because there's not that many of them out there.
Right.
And they just have their own like concept of what a controller is. So.
And wanted to ask you, are there any, what are the differences in terms of the game itself between the Pico 4 and the Meta? Any secret nuggets in the Pico 4 that you put in there that you don't have in the Meta or vice versa?
I mean, I think that the big thing with the platforms is going to be, it's going to be performance, and especially amongst the standalone headsets, it's going to be optimizations that we need to do mostly from a visual standpoint. I don't believe that there's anything under the hood that's different other than just sort of like the number of triangles we can get on the screen and the and sort of like the quality of the shaders. Every once in a while, we try to avoid it, but sometimes we do have to do a custom shader just to get it to run on lower end hardware is usually the one sacrifice that we need to make. But we usually aim high and then start to whittle that stuff down. So you will be seeing, on like PlayStation or Rift or on Steam VR or something, you're not going to be, there's basically no optimizations. You're not seeing any lotting. You're not seeing any reduced shaders. You're seeing everything sort of like pure and usually rendered at a usually 1.5x multiplier. So just like, even though you can still see the pixels on the screen, it's really, really crisp is the big thing.
Right, and for those who are looking to develop a game on the Pico 4, I know, I mean, they've come a long way, I have to say, in the last 2-3 years, especially after the acquisition of ByteDance. What's it like to adapt your game, with the Pico controllers and all the Pico technical stuff to adapt your game from Meta to Pico? Take us through that a little bit.
I mean, I think that a lot of the stuff that you have to do for going to different platforms is more to do with back-end stuff typically. So we have getting really into the weeds, we have a whole build pipeline. So every time we have to do sort of like a build, it's not like we just have someone manually going in and building one. We've got an automated system that builds it, uploads it to the right place, and make sure that it's going to the right channels, gets it, basically set through a review process and trying to automate that as much as possible. There's also a lot that have to do with entitlements. PlayStation was particularly interesting to work with.
Take us through that. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, just because PlayStation has so many additional requirements that there was a lot of extra stuff that we did under the hood that I don't think most people will use or notice, but it's requirements that when you're playing in a multiplayer room with someone who's not on PlayStation, you need a way to distinguish that person is not on the PlayStation network, that they're on something else. So there's a lot of those things that are kind of part of that ecosystem that a lot of development that went into those little features, but it's mostly just to sort of check the box, I would almost say, for many of the platforms.
So at the moment, Walkabout is not cross-play, so you can't play with you can play with
No, it is cross-play. It's just
right?
that in order to allow us to do cross-play, we had to do a lot of extra technical things as far as moderation, being able to limit it so that one of the requirements is that anything on PlayStation has to have a switch that will only allow you to connect to other PlayStation or PSN players. So there's a switch on that that's just for the PlayStation version. I wouldn't think that many people would actually use it because if you're playing multiplayer VR, you generally want to be with other VR players, and it's already a small enough market. So it's a lot of things like that are just all of that kind of super boring, really under the hood, sort of like technical legal.
No, we love that stuff.
That's like 80% of the job, unfortunately.
And how's it taking for Pico 4? Because they've been doing, ByteDance has been spending more money to do advertising and all that kind of stuff. So how do you say the take-up rates at Pico 4 in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 months or so?
Honestly, I think that you'd probably be a better judge of that than we are, just because most of our team, actually all of our team, is in the US pretty much. So they don't actually sell the Pico over here. Right. So I think that I think, to be honest, like, we as developers, we've kind of been keeping an eye on it, but it's not sort of like we just don't have a great way of actually reaching that market and really sort of like focusing a lot of energy on sort of like with like social media for the Asian markets and stuff like that. But we just don't really have a way to do it.
More people from Singapore, Malaysia, because they've been promoting a lot of their stuff down here, and also Korea and Japan. Have you seen more Asian crowd coming into the game compared to before? Because Meta don't really, I mean, they promote Japan a lot, but they don't really promote here that much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the vast majority, I think that probably about 90% of our players just across the entire game are in the US, Canada, all of the European countries. There's multiple languages and everything. Australia, New Zealand, also a lot. And Japan is still probably one of them, Japan and South Korea, but I actually am kind of curious on that, if that's more of a if how well mini golf translates, or just sort of like, if that's as much of a known thing in Asia, because it's a relatively small percentage of the player base, I would say, that's coming from Asia right now.
And by the way, we will be putting your knowledge test of mini golf a bit later, so coming soon, everybody.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you, now Meta lowered the age entry from 13 to 10. Tell me what you think about that, and how potentially it could, how Walkabout Mini Golf could benefit, the younger crowd.
So I think that we're a bit of an odd duck, especially when it comes to the age factor, because I think that our audience tends to be fairly mature. On our Discord, most of our audience tends to be in that 30, 40 and up range. We've got a lot of people who are in their 70s, 80s, even 90s that are playing. So I think that just something about mini golf, it tends to appeal more to a slightly older audience. There's definitely a lot of people who play with families, and I know there's some people with younger kids or preteens that are playing. So so I don't know that that's going to have as big of an impact on us as it probably would most other games. I also think that's probably something that, as far as what the rules say, I think that just people in VR, I think everyone's kind of made their own decision for a lot of it. So I think that you've had people under 13 playing in mini online games. So I don't know that is really going to have much of a behavior change. If anything, maybe it'll hopefully just open up the possibility for a bit more control of the communities, that this this community is for 21 and up or something like that, or however you slice and dice the sort of like the community management side of things.
Walkabout Mini Golf is a very safe app, right? I mean, it's one of the safest ones there, and it's also very calming and adventurous and stuff. So there's no issues in terms of shooting and zombies looking too hyper realistic coming towards you and stuff.
Right.
But do you think the technology, though, the VR itself, like a VR headset, or even, and we'll talk about this in a moment more in depth, the Vision Pro even, do you think these kind of technologies are too young for kids? Do you think, I don't know, for the eyesight or the head, I don't know. I mean, what's your take in general about the actual technology? Not so much the apps, but the technology itself.
I really don't know that I have a super sort of strong opinion, and I think that so much of that is going to be more like it's more about research. It's more about knowing, how safe it is, what people are doing, and just generally sort of like I would say that it's probably more down to the communities and the people that they're interacting with is probably, to me, the bigger thing that I would have concerns about as a parent, more so than the physical stuff. I think there's also just a factor of
definitely.
Each of the headsets has a different feel and fits in its own way. And I think that there's just generally sort of like if it's designed and the IPD is set up that it could actually match what to be appropriate. I don't think that being in there for too long, I think that's the other big thing. The amount of time that people are spending in there. If you're hopping in for a quick little session, and also depending on what you're doing, if you're doing something creative, if you're doing something that's more involved versus, if you're just getting in and shooting stuff, there's a time and a place for that. But I think that if you're doing that for 5 hours a day in VR, it's going to have an impact on everyone, regardless of age.
Yeah, I think the dreams, I personally, when I spend, sometimes I will spend literally a week in VR because I'm researching something or testing something. And I remember when I was doing, Saint and Sinners, Walking Dead, I was literally having dreams of being chased by zombies.
I remember that I kind of wish that I could go back to that very first time when you first get into VR and you have that 2 week sort of, I don't want to call it a honeymoon period, but you kind of start dreaming in VR, and just like your brain, it takes a little while to adapt to it. After a couple of weeks, all that went away, and now it's sort of like, okay, I'm in VR, now I'm out. It doesn't linger quite like it does. Honestly, I would say that probably the only time that I spend a significant amount of time in VR in like a really long session is probably doing Gravity Sketch, because we're doing a lot of our building of the levels in that, and that's the only time that I'll spend like 2, 3, sometimes even 4 hours in like a single solid sort of like session. Is really the only time that I'm spending more than an hour in there, I would say.
So for those who are not familiar with Gravity Sketch, let me just go to YouTube very quickly. So basically, what Lucas is saying is that they use this VR app to basically draw some of the worlds, basically, which I think is frigging amazing. Let me just cut the sound. So I'm just playing the video on top of us at the moment, so they can't see us.
Okay.
But yeah, so Lucas, last time actually we did a live stream with Lucas last time, so do go and check out that video on the channel. I'll put the link at the end of this live stream below, so you can go and find it. Where he actually showed, I think you showed some pictures or something last time, or I went on your channel. I can't remember exactly. But basically, you can also go to Walkabout Mini Golf YouTube channel, by the way, and they have videos there. Unless you didn't take them down, right? You still have them, I think.
No, I think we've got pretty much all of them up. But yeah, there's some making of, some behind the scenes stuff. There's even a couple, I think, for Journey to the Center of the Earth, which just came out a few weeks ago. I know that I had actually recorded most of what I was doing in Gravity Sketch during all of that. So it's been edited down just to sort of like kind of give a few highlights. But yeah, you can kind of see how we're doing that and how we're using that as part of our level creation process.
Yeah, in fact, let me find your YouTube channel, and then I can show some videos from there as well. But Gravity Sketch is an absolutely amazing app. So I really do recommend you guys, if you like to, do drawing and all that kind of stuff, you can use it to create VR worlds, which I think is frigging amazing. Oh, it's at the Mighty Coconut channel, I think it is.
Oh, probably, yes.
Yeah, that's right. So guys, if you want to find the Mighty Coconut channel, which is basically the company that it's the company that you founded that publishes Walkabout Mini Golf, right?
Yeah, we started off as a mostly animation and visual effects, and then Walkabout was a pandemic project, and now the whole studio is really converted over from being more of a work for hire animation visual effects studio to now we're doing our own, just our own, everything that we're doing is VR and gaming focused.
That's right.
And we self-publish. All of Walkabout is self-published as well. So that kind of happened by accident, and it turned out to be very lucky, because now with how we're releasing courses and new content as often as we are, it really, really helps that we are in control of the publishing ourselves. It makes it possible to do things at that cadence.
So I'm showing them as you're talking. I'm superimposing the video of one of the worlds that you or someone else, I'm not quite sure, actually did using Gravity Sketch. So I think this is really, really interesting stuff to educate people about how you actually go about your process, which is what we spoke about a lot last time. But since then, you've had so many new stuff come out. What are some of the highlights of the DLCs that you've published in the last few months?
Let's see. So this year we launched Atlantis in January, which is definitely one of the prettiest courses I think that we've ever done. Just the effects and the life that we got into there. There was a lot of work done adding a pretty elaborate sort of behavior-based fish system. So I forget how many there are in there, but there's over 1,000 fish sort of like swimming around. It just really gives you a very lively sort of feel.
Cool.
We just released Journey to the Center of the Earth a couple of weeks ago.
Before
that one was great. That was our second in our trilogy of Jules Verne courses. We have an Around the World in 80 Days course that will be coming later this year or early next year. And we also released Zerzura, the Temple at Zerzura, which is our Egypt course that wrapped up our Lost Cities pack. Let's see. Oh, and then Upside Town was a very, very fun one where you're able to putt into sort of like these glowing trigger areas, and it causes the gravity of just your ball to change. So the hole might be on the ceiling, and you've got to hit a trigger that'll basically cause the ball to go up onto the ceiling, and now you've got to putt overhand in order to.
All right. Okay.
Yeah,
I heard about that. Cool.
It was both loved and it was widely adored and also widely hated. It was very divisive for the community, which I actually kind of love. We definitely took a fun swing with that one. I think that a couple people, maybe we broke the concept of what mini golf is just a little too much for some people, but for a lot of other people, it really is a experience that could only happen in VR.
Right.
And I think that just that gravity changing thing is sort of like, I think that was even something that as we were building it, that was the thing that gave us that closest sort of like new to VR, even though we've been doing it for, several years now.
Right.
That was the course that gave us that most sort of like VR is so cool, just in a way that many of us hadn't gotten for years.
Right. And I'm just playing some of the new DLCs that you launched from your YouTube channel. For the Atlantis one, I haven't had the opportunity to try it yet, the Atlantis one, but I'm curious to know about the ball. Does it, I mean, are there physics in there where it, you know, it interacts with the balls, so the ball's kind of floating around, or is it normal, but you just have water? You're like in basically a 360 aquarium, but you're not in fact in the water. I mean, how do the physics work?
Yeah, we did play around with adding water, and there is something about the physics with mini golf that we've also played around with gravity changing and, you know, like the viscosity of water and stuff like that.
Right.
It doesn't make for a very pleasant experience. So ultimately we decided, like, okay, it's going to feel like it's going to look like you're in water, but it's going to play fairly normal.
Right.
There's just a lot of weird stuff that your brain is not used to processing that. And even the idea of like, oh, playing on, you know, the moon or Mars or something that has like 1/6 Earth gravity.
Right.
It really sort of like your brain doesn't quite know what to do with it. And especially mini golf is so specific and people have spent a lot of time just like really dialing it in. It doesn't feel good to change gravity. You could change like how slow or fast the greens are, but once you sort of like completely change gravity, people can't really know what to expect.
So basically people are more than happy to be immersed within an atmosphere that takes them somewhere, whilst the physics are the same as on ground, as opposed to changing the entire thing and making the whole experience really difficult to the point that they're like, forget this, I need to get out of here and try something
else. I think that we definitely sort of like err on the side of fun. Right. And so if there's something that is maybe like in your brain seems like a cool idea, but it doesn't actually just feel fun when you're doing it, that's something we change. Actually, the gravity is a good example. I had been playing around with a way to do some different gravity for quite a while.
Right.
And ultimately, the reason that we went with Upside Down was that we realized that your brain was really able to process the idea of like the ball changing gravity as long as the directions that it changed were still cardinal directions. So you've got up, down, north, south, east, west. But you don't have like degrees within that. You don't have an angle that is suddenly that you're putting up, but it acts like no gravity. We found that as long as it stayed very rectilinear and in these cardinal directions, that found that balance so you could do some really fun stuff, but also not sort of like just get too confusing or too brain bursting for the most part.
I wanted to ask you something about VR manufacturers. Do they approach you as a marketing ploy to release a DLC first on their VR headset versus another one? Or how do you strategize your launches for all the various different platforms?
So what we're really striving for is to launch on all platforms at the same time.
Right.
We are coming to Pico with the DLCs. That's been basically just so like we've just recently gotten to the point that there was that they had the back end tools to really properly support DLCs and to keep it consistent enough, because I think there is, again, jumping back to the publishing, there is a lot of work that goes into not only releasing a course with the cadence that we are, but on as many platforms as we are, so it becomes multiplicative, so that, you know, if we've got if we're releasing on every 6 weeks on 6 platforms, that's literally 52 releases a year. And even though they share some of the same assets, there is a lot that has to go into each and every one of those, and has to be beta tested or QA tested on every single platform, and just really go through all of those things. So while we strive to release everything, and I believe that as of now we're hitting that, it's definitely sort of a bit of a high wire act in terms of trying to get all of those done and making sure that we've got the cadence that the next one coming up is also going to be ready when it needs to be ready.
Cool. I just wanted to thank a few people just very quickly. First of all, thanks guys for joining the stream, and apologies for the delay that I had with OBS. So I will be reading everybody's comments at the end of this interview. So do hang around until the end of the live stream, everybody. And also just want to thank Armis71. Thanks for your help for trying to get me to fix OBS earlier. EP, audio on both of you is good here. Awesome, EP, thanks a lot. And James, please, sorry, Armis71 says, Soundcore VR P10 wireless gaming earbuds. MetaQuest 2, which uses 2.4 gigahertz. Don't use Bluetooth, too much delay latency. All right, thanks for that. James says, please put a coin on the golf ball board by the course selection screen. In an in-game VR coin flip would be a fun and nice option to have when trying to make a course decision amongst VR buddies.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for that comment, James. And guys, if you have
people
any
voting on the
guys, if you have any,
go ahead. Sorry,
that's all right. Jump in anytime.
We're on a bit of a delay. So.
Yeah, a little bit of a delay, I guess. Yeah, guys, if you have any questions or any comments you want to ask Lucas, please put them in the comment in the chat, and then I'll read them. I will come back to it later. I also want to thank Skiva from Between Realities, and also SRML. I think is that his new. He's got a new publishing VR game company. I'm trying to get Between Realities, him and Alex, on the show as well. So do make sure, guys, you hit the notification bell after you subscribe, as there'll be plenty of new live streams coming up, AMAs coming up, and also Ghost of Tabor might be coming up. So we're trying to make that happen for you. I'm talking to Nacy, I'm talking to Steve Knows as well to try and get them here. So guys, do hit the notification bell after you subscribe for all those lovely things coming soon. Okay, so very quickly, want to talk to you about the subscription stuff on MetaQuest, and also not just Meta, but also because you're on Viveport as well. How does it work? What's the difference between, having people to pay to purchase, to download, and people to pay to subscribe for you guys as the developers' point of view? What's the difference there?
I mean, really, for us as developers, it doesn't really change much, because those are basically just each of the platforms, and each of them have their own model. So Viveport is different in that Viveport is sort of like, as long as you're subscribed, you get access to their entire content library. Whereas the Quest Plus is obviously more on the PlayStation Plus sort of like model of that you build up, and as long as you hold on to that. Right. So for us as developers, those are really platform things that don't really change too much about how we're working. We are also we're also in a spot now where the game has been out for a little over 2 years. So we're kind of feeling that we've gotten to a point now where, like, okay, let's try to make it as easy as possible for different people to get in. And so subscription services, we're just trying to generally open it up, and we're lucky that we're kind of in a boat that we're able to, as long as something makes sense, we're able to play with a lot more people.
Well, what do you mean by make sense? You mean revenue generating, or do you mean content itself? What's your degree of make sense?
I mean, I think that the only thing that you want to make sure is that no one on other platforms, so like if you're going to run a sale on one particular platform, you want to kind of match that, if not at the same time, then shortly after on other platforms. You don't necessarily want to sort of, you don't want one platform to necessarily just be sort of like giving it away, and then it sort of like kind of makes it feel odd for the folks who are on different platforms, things like that. So also with some of the subscription services, there needs to be enough of a benefit for us, because there's also an ongoing cost with supporting that platform, with making sure that, I mean, even just like running all the multiplayer services, there's some cost that goes into just having a live service game where you've got people logging in kind of constantly. So we're still paying for a lot of server bandwidth and a lot of those other services that we have to make sure that we cover.
So, I mean, I'm on the Viveport page here, just superimposing both of us. I believe it's $5.99 a month for the basic one, but then you can only use the Vive Flow and the Vive Focus, and then the next one, I think, if I remember correctly, was around 11 or 12 bucks or something, US, and you can then use all the various different VR headsets, including the Quest 2, although it doesn't list Pico 4 yet there. So, I mean, do developers make money when you are on a subscription? How does it work? Because normally I understand that when you download, it's 30% goes to the platform, then you guys keep 70, right? Something like that. So how does it work for subscription base?
So I would say that all of the subscription services are more of an add-on. It's one of those things that you wouldn't necessarily, like, you're not going to develop a game specifically for a subscription service, at least not right now. There's none of them that are big enough or ubiquitous enough that it makes sense. So it's kind of one of those things, also not unlike VR arcades, where if you have the game and it's not too much difficulty to sort of like to manage another platform or another service like that, we're now in several VR arcades as well. And it's kind of one of those things that once you have a game, you can go to some of those other services. And yeah, I would say that you don't necessarily make much, but it's, again, there's also just a general awareness, and it's a great opportunity for people who, it's kind of a way for people to demo it. There's a lot of people who have a Viveport subscription that, maybe they wouldn't necessarily think too much about a mini golf game, but I got it. Let me just download it and try it really quick. It is a really, really good way to just sort of like help ease the onboarding process for some people. So there's a lot of things that aren't just straight black and white decisions.
So am I understanding correctly that, are you saying that no revenue goes to developers for subscription-based services like Viveport?
No, I'm saying it does. It's just
just a small amount.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would say that Viveport is probably one of, if not the smallest platforms that we're on, just in terms of overall sort of like the piece of the pie that is that comes in from Viveport.
So for Quest, right? Because I mean, obviously Meta are huge company, so it's a great marketing thing to be able to be part of one of the subscriptions. So basically, it gives developers a 1 month kind of pump, right? Is what I would call it. But you don't really see any revenue from that, or do you actually see something from it? Because there's revenue that comes from all of those. The Quest Plus is brand new. They had actually approached us a while back about when they were still kind of figuring it out, and we had kind of given a preliminary like, yeah, that sounds good. Let's work out the the details in a very early on state. And so one of the benefits to us is that we're being one of the first people on that. We got a lot of marketing that came out of that, but it only just started. We haven't seen anything yet. So as far as numbers, so we don't really know how well it's going to do, but there's a lot in the VR space that is a bit of an unknown. Everyone is still figuring out business models, platforms, what works, what doesn't. And yeah, you kind of, I think you have to be a little experimental to be in the VR space, just because that's, of course,
everything is still so in flux right now.
And do you know, because this is the question we're all asking ourselves, maybe you know the answer to this, or maybe they haven't decided yet. So I pay whatever bucks it is to get the 2 top games during that month. But then once the month is over, do I still have Walkabout in my library, or is it gone already and it will be replaced with the 2 next ones?
I am 99% certain that when basically, as long as you keep the subscription, those will stay in your library.
Oh, so the library incrementally, so it becomes 24 at the end of the year.
Exactly, yeah. So after 1 year, you should have 24 in your library. I do believe, and again, there might be some nuance to this, but I believe that once that subscription stops, though, I think that this is standard across like PlayStation Plus and those as well. That like if you stop that subscription, then that library, that the collection that you've built up probably goes away. I would guess that if there's a way that if you restart it, maybe you get access again. But again, that's all on the platform side. So I'm only sort of like relaying what I have also sort of read about it with our deal and everything.
Right. But I mean, if they're selling it for cheap, and then I mean, if I was a developer and my game, I mean, if my game was, I mean, Walkabout Mini Golf obviously is hugely popular. You have a lot of people. You probably have most of the people in VR who've tried your game at least once, I would say. Or I mean, a huge portion of the VR people must have downloaded your game. And until we have a new influx of new people that come into VR, there's probably a stage now with all these games, even with like, even Half-Life Alyx on PC VR, or all the various big games that came out, probably are at a stagnant phase now until the next influx of people that come in. So if the new influx of people that come in don't download your game and they go for the subscription based thing, wouldn't that be a bit of a loss in terms of revenue for developers?
I mean, there's absolutely a risk with that. I think that we are in a boat now where we have made a conscious decision to keep the cost of the game fairly cheap. We launched with just 4 courses, no features. It was really bare bones in that very first version. We actually haven't changed the price at all. It launched at $14.99. It's still $14.99 US. And we've added 4 courses, the whole Welcome Island driving range, a lot more features, a lot more increasing room size. So we've kind of made the decision to keep it relatively easy for people to get into. And then our DLC model, which are still fairly low cost, but they're $3.99 per. A couple of the older ones are still set at $2.99. We also haven't raised the price of those. So I think most of our revenue now actually comes more from people buying those add-on courses. So for us, there's a benefit of getting people, there's a benefit of just getting more people in. At the same time, there's even been, some people have asked about like, well, at that point, wouldn't free to play make more sense? And I think that that's a possibility, but I also feel like we are very protective of we're very protective of the community that has built up and really been a fan of this game. And while we don't want to, I guess the best way to say it is that we just don't want to have suddenly like 10x or 20 or 30x the number of players suddenly coming in and changing that dynamic. We want to continue to grow, but we want to do it at a sustained thing and something that's not going to something that we're not maybe prepared for, because manage a community of 10x, 20x the number of people is a significant, it would require a lot more infrastructure. And if we messed it up, we could kind of like damage things irreparably.
Right. So you actually have your strategy in terms of number of users, new users that would go into it. If there are too many, you can just basically cap it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. A little bit of just sort of like, that we're a little cautious about just sort of like, just a massive influx or something of that we might not be able to properly support or properly just sort of like, the community is really, really important to us. We want to make sure that we sort of like that help it grow, and it doesn't grow so big so fast that we sort of like lose the ability to control and make sure that we're keeping it safe and positive for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, we want to welcome Todd to the stream. So hi, Todd. Thanks for joining the live stream today. Do leave your comments and any questions below. And he says, "What's up, party people?" So yeah, what's up, party people? EP has a question. Have you had a chance to test on the? Wait, let me just take that down because I can't see. On the upcoming Quest 3 and the controllers that have no tracking ring yet. If so, do they work well for Walkabout? Are you allowed to talk about that?
Well, I could say I haven't actually played anything on the Quest 3, okay. So I could. If I had, I probably wouldn't be able to say. But no, I actually haven't gotten a chance to test it out. I think the big thing for us, there has been a little bit of just sort of user onboarding and a little bit of general. Let me just grab my controller here, because one of the first things that a lot of people do when we say to pick up a single controller, the first thing they do is they grab onto the ring. Right. So if anything, I would hope that
that's true.
People won't be doing that.
That's how we know we're from monkeys.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it's got a handle right there. It's like, no, that doesn't work. So we're always sort of like a little sensitive to the controllers. So I'm not too concerned about that. If anything, I think that it might actually make our jobs a little bit easier, because it's not going to cause issues outside of if someone's doing it wrong.
What's your favorite VR headset to play Walkabout Mini Golf? I'm testing it on the new DPVR E4 at the moment. I have to say it's doing a very good job, because as you know, the HP have detonated a huge explosion, killing off all the people in VR over there. So unfortunately, at the moment, no G3, which is a great shame. It's an amazing headset. So DPVR is kind of coming up now, spending a little bit more money on their marketing as well to try and be the new G2, even though it's really not, it's not at the G2 level, but it's a great for entry for Barrett. Have you tried the DPVR or not yet?
I haven't. There was a phase where I was really able to try out a lot more of the headsets, and now my energy is so much more focused on the software side of things that I'm of course keeping an eye on the hardware and getting a chance to play it. But like we've got a PSVR 2 dev kit in the office, and of course I've put it on and I've played it a couple times, and especially while we were building it. But so much of my day-to-day is focused on the courses and the content that we're working that's coming up, that I actually just personally don't get as much time to really just like try out all the VR headsets.
What VR headset do you like to use these days?
I mean, so most of our team is using Quest 2s, and that's because it's by far the most it's the most widespread one. It also gives us the ability, because I can tether it. So right in Unity, you could just hit play and it pops up, or also use it for online. So the fact that I don't have to sort of manage 3 or 4 different headsets and making sure that they're all charged up or whatever. I know that our QA team is testing on everything. So they've got, Pico 4, Pico 3 Neo, Quest 2, Quest 1, all of the different flavors and variations that you can imagine.
When will we be able to play Walkabout Mini Golf and use our home as one of the scenes using mixed reality pass-through?
You know, that's something there's a big push right now for mixed reality, and we've played around with it, and I'm not saying that we won't. There's a good chance that we'll do something with it down the road.
Is this something that people want, you think?
I mean, I think it's one of those things that conceptually you want it, but if you think about Walkabout, so much of the game is about the environment that you're in.
Yep.
And it's about the sort of these larger than life worlds that we're creating. And I think that for our game in particular, you lose that when you go to mixed reality. So that's not to say that we won't ever do something, because we've got a couple of ideas of things that we would like to try.
Yeah, unless you do like a Monster Hunt game kind of thing, and you can go to different corners of the street or whatever, or something, and I don't know.
Exactly. There's absolutely applications. I just think that ours is it's so much about the world and the environment that I just think that we kind of lose that with MR. So it might be something for an upcoming game or something. Maybe we try a mode or something that might let you do that, but it's not something that we're actively working on at the moment.
Right. So moving on to Apple swiftly, gently there. So Apple were trying to promote more, spatial computing and using your hands much more. Now, Meta, of course, have been the king of hand tracking for quite some time now. There isn't, to my knowledge, there isn't yet a Walkabout Mini Golf version where you use your hands only. Is that right? On the Quest.
Correct. Yeah, it's only controller.
Before Apple.
We are starting to play around with it. I think that it's definitely a challenge for a lot of games. I mean, I think that if you're talking about there's a lot of talk about Apple Pro, but from a developer standpoint, the thing that everyone is talking about is controllers. I think that the vast majority of games just won't work conceptually with hand tracking, at least not without a completely rethinking. Not just like the UI, but like how the game fundamentally works.
Which is weird, because Rec Room is coming to Apple to Vision Pro, and Rec Room has so many different mini games. I mean, it has literally everything you can think of, right? Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. If I would
think though that Rec Room would be a good example. One though of there might be certain things that work, and you could have some of the mini games that just don't work or something like that. I would say that we're probably we're lucky in the sense that I think that making it work with hand tracking feels like a possibility. I think the one thing that is a bit of a concern to us is just how accurate we can get, because it's not just about the accuracy of the hand tracking. You're controlling a club that is a meter away from that. So the difference, you could barely even see me moving the controller, but that's the club head moving about a foot. So the accuracy has to be extremely high, and the delay is the other big factor. And I know with the hand tracking, it's definitely getting better, but the latency is enough that it does not feel good to be really physics interactions are not quite there yet. So I'm actually eager to get my hands on a Vision Pro and to just sort of really see how good they're able to get that hand tracking, both from a latency and from a just precision standpoint.
But has your team downloaded the Reality OS? Have you guys looked at the software a little bit and see what you could potentially do with it?
I know that the tech team has been they've been kind of starting to peel that onion a little bit. I don't know that, because we're using Unity for everything, so we are not going to just we have to keep everything in Unity, and that is still sort of an ongoing thing that they don't have set up yet.
I believe it is Unity compatible, if I'm not wrong.
It is, but I don't believe that that you have to have a special branch of Unity that I don't believe is available to developers yet. So I think they're still working on it. Okay. So until that link happens, we can look at what it looks like in Xcode, but we're not really going to be able to do much with it. We also, I don't believe that almost nobody has hardware for it yet. So conceptually, yeah, you could look at the API, but you're not actually going to be able to put on the headset until we actually start getting dev kits out.
Okay.
So,
which will be soon. That's pretty exciting.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, this is another one that I'm kind of talking a bit that I don't actually know, because none of us have actually gotten a chance to try. So few people have gotten a chance to try the VisionPro that we've actually gotten more information from a lot of other press folks who were at the event or have been able to get a demo, because that's really the only touchstone that we have at the moment.
Okay.
It'll also be kind of curious whether they do actually launch proper dev kits for it, or if they go more the iPhone route and think like, okay, once the commercial release is what's the Vision 1 or Vision Pro, maybe that is almost more like the dev kit. So it's also possible that there just won't even be much hardware out for developers until launch day.
Yeah, you make a good point, because to my understanding, they said that would be the dev kit. So very good point you're making here, whether they'll have something before or on the sidelines even whilst they have that launched in the stores. Just want to welcome Alex VR here from Between Realities. This thank you very much for joining the stream. How are you doing? So we're going to trying my best to convince these people, to make them feel like they have to come on the show, so we can talk about all the various different interviews that they've done. If you don't know Between Realities, Lucas, I'm sure you do. Basically, Alex and Skiva, they've interviewed everyone and anyone in the entire industry. And I think their channel, honestly speaking, deserves so many more views and recognition in terms of what they've done. And also, Alex, what company do you work for? Can you write it down in the chat? I believe he works for one of the hand tracking or glove hand tracking companies, if I'm not wrong. But he may have changed. I'm not quite sure. But if you're still with him, put the company down there so we can let Lucas know. I just wanted to ask you about Vision Pro very quickly. So what are you excited about, Lucas?
I mean, I definitely think that it feels like that's going to introduce a whole new sort of like paradigm, and the idea of like, okay, this is sort of like VR, depending on what you want to call it. If we're at VR 1.0, it feels like that is very much a VR 2.0. The interface of the eye tracking is huge. I've been wanting to see that for years, and I think that the hardware finally getting to a point that it's capable of doing that, I think is going to be the biggest thing. I think obviously the controllers are a bit of a concern for a lot of us who are, currently in the VR space. And I'll be very, very curious to see how that interaction model evolves and develops, and the standards that are kind of going around it. Because I think that's the whole thing. It's like, it took a decade from the time that the mouse got introduced to really sort of like get that full suite of like, okay, scroll bars, drop down menus, scroll wheel is now standard across the board. So I think that we're going to be entering a fun, but also a very volatile time where people are going to be figuring out how some of these new interactions work. And again, as a developer, I was saying literally, a week before the Vision Pro was announced, sort of like just how grateful I was that it felt like everyone had finally kind of standardized around the one thumbstick on each hand, and you've got an A, B, or an X, like just the fact, okay, we finally agreed on a control scheme, and now just that's all gone. So it'll be definitely back into a bit of the wild, wild west here for a bit, as everyone sort of like is trying to figure out what works and standards sort of evolve.
Yeah, and like if you're playing a mini golf game and suddenly you got a call coming up, and then you have the window that comes into the game and you can see the other person. That's kind of interesting.
I mean, I definitely think that the multitasking ability is huge, and I think that that ability to sort of like even on the Vision Pro, a couple of people have done it where they'll like pop up a web UI window just with like the Quest browser, and actually be able to like, I mean, even for us like taking notes, it'd be fantastic to be able to have our Asana tasks up that like, just found a little spot, snap a picture, just drop it onto the actual Asana task.
That was pretty amazing. Yeah, the one where you took the object from the 3D attachment from the window and then just dropped it in, right? And then It just materializes
Exactly.
itself, right? Yeah, I would
Yeah.
imagine if
So
you're
many of those little details that I think that getting apps and apps, games, everything to just sort of work more together and more system level things that that we're able to tap into, because right now it is still very much that if you're building a game, if you want to have a browser in there, you got to build it in. If you want to let someone listen to YouTube music while they're doing it, you've got to build that in yourself. A lot of these things that feel like those should start to become more core system components.
Right.
I think will really open things up and let people just do a lot more stuff with the games outside of just the straight, playing the game.
Now, the DPVI4 has actually an LED bar on the front of the visor,
Okay.
which changes color. You can, change the colors yourself and stuff, and the software, which I guess it's a gaming thing. But the Vision Pro has the complete eyes that you can see of the person. What do you think about that? Is it just a sci-fi gimmick, or do you see utility in that? What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I think like most things, it's going to depend on what you do with it. I think that there's definitely some there are definitely some things that solves in terms of like knowing what people are looking at, being able to interact with people that are in the room. I think it's going to be like, I'm actually on a MacBook Pro right now that has the touch bar, which I actually really like that touch bar, and they went away from it because it just didn't get adopted enough.
Right.
And it didn't. So I think that's going to be the big thing, is sort of like there are some more use cases for that could be really interesting, and it'll just be a question of uptake. Like, is it worth that extra cost of building all of that in, all the processing that goes into it? There's a pretty significant amount of just production cost that goes into something like that. So it's going to be a question of, does that get used enough for it to become justified, and that just becomes standard now that everyone moving forward has that. So that jury's out on that one. It's going to take a couple of years to really know for certain whether that sticks around.
Well, when Tesla first launched the Roadster, I believe that it was really, really pricey, and only celebrities could buy it and stuff. So they really drove people into wanting one, as opposed to it being very practical, because back then electric cars were really impractical. Do you find that the strategy that Apple taking with the Vision Pro to be, of course, very similar, although they did it before Tesla did it with their own computers and stuff, to be the way to go for VR's progress and getting more adoption?
I mean, I think that what they're doing makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, it's the price is high, but at the same time, if you are a developer, like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal to spend $3,500. Maybe not the entire team is going to be using them, but if you've got a use case for it, then businesses can absolutely justify it. And I'm fairly certain that the idea, to me at least, is that, okay, they've found a way to sort of like cram all the things that they want into a Gen 1 product, so that developers can be building with this in mind. The idea being probably that it's going to come down. They're going to find that, like, ultimately, my guess is that they do want to have true pass-through AR, at which point you don't need to have that whole faceplate. You don't need to have all that. But the idea of at least having it in there from the beginning allows people to kind of like get used to the paradigm of it a little bit. So I think that it makes sense. And I think that it amazes me that the number of people that we still see when you ask if they've tried VR, it's like, oh, they're like, oh yeah, I've tried it. Like, what, when did you try it? It's like, oh, it was 10 years ago. It's the one where you put the phone into the thing, and like that is still people's idea of what VR is. We really need something showing off like here is what is possible to get people excited again. And so I think that it's definitely going to be good for the broader VR community to have that. I think that there's going to be a lot of Quest 3s sold because people try out the Vision Pro and are really, it's like, oh yeah, I love this, but I don't really need all of the bells and whistles. And, the Quest 3 is going to do, 90% of what I would use it for. So I think that it's going to be good just generally to get more people into the space and forward thinking in the VR space.
I think what's very interesting, what I've noticed since Apple's Vision Pro announcement launch, is the fact that now we don't only see Meta in the news. So whenever they actually come out with some kind of rather excuse to have some kind of publication, even publications in Southeast Asia never actually took a Wall Street Journal article and then put it inside of their own, article, because that's what they all do, right? They all like kind of tweak their articles. And now I read a lot more about VR in publications. Whenever Meta comes out with something, boom, it's everywhere. And now when Vision Pro comes out, boom, it's everywhere. I mean, Apple about Vision Pro comes out, it's everywhere. It's nice to see that, because finally there's no longer only Meta in the space. Now there's really Apple talking about it. But I still don't see anything about Pico, to be honest with you. Like, there's nothing in the news. I see a lot of their stuff in LinkedIn. Like, they're very good on LinkedIn, I think, because they're very pro enterprise, right? But when it comes to consumer news, whenever they release something or there's something, I honestly speaking don't see any traction anywhere yet. I don't know whether that's a branding thing or lobbying thing, or I got no idea. I'm just saying that they're not there. But it's great to see that Meta are no longer on their own, and Apple are really making as much noise as Meta now. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think that a lot of that also comes down to when Apple enters a space, they're kind of trying to redefine it. And so I definitely think that it's ignited that conversation in a way that we haven't had, because I mean, really, it has been quite a while. The Quest 2 came out was that 2020?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it was like October of 2020. So it's been quite a while since we had sort of like, we've had software updates. There hasn't been a lot in terms of like a big leap forward there's been a lot of incremental stuff, and there's been new games, new experiences, all that sort of stuff, but we haven't had that big moment. Oh, excuse me, just one second. Sorry,
That's all right. No, if you need to take a break, by the way, have some glass of water.
I'm okay. But yeah, so I think that it's been a few years since we've had sort of like a big leap forward in terms of new hardware. And I would argue that really the thing that is sort of like, I hesitate to say holding VR back a little bit, but we need more software. We need more things that you can do on the device. And I think that some of that is more creativity tools, productivity tools, which is obviously what Apple is focusing on. But we also need more games, more experiences, just like there needs to be a lot more development in that space. VR has been doing that though I would say that we're probably on the third iteration of this in terms of like, it's got a big increase in that sort of like, it wanes a little bit. And then you have the new headset. It does seem to come around with sort of like big leaps in the hardware. And so, yeah, so Apple coming in and the Quest 3 slated to drop towards the end of the year, I think we're definitely hoping that there's going to be this next wave of VR enthusiasm that comes from that.
Have you had the latest Quest 2 update yet? Version 55, have you tried it?
The tech team has been looking at that. I believe that they've got an early access version of that, but I haven't personally, so I really don't know what to say. I know that it unlocks more CPU, it unlocks more GPU, which is the big thing for us, and there's a couple of, with the dynamic resolution. We were already doing a version of that on our own. So the tough thing is I was talking about features. The great thing is like, okay, now there's this cool new thing that we could absolutely implement. And there's enough people on Quest 2 that we can justify sort of supporting that. However, we still need to keep the old system in place because Pico is still using that, and a couple of other platforms might still be using that. So you tend to get this sort of bifurcation of things. And again, it just makes everything a bit more chaotic from the development side of things, because you've got to support so many different features and test under so many different conditions.
Right. And do you have like a secret Walkabout Mini Golf version that mystery shoppers wouldn't even know they're testing?
I guess I don't quite follow that one.
Well, what I mean is, do you have like a version of Walkabout Mini Golf that's roaming around the VR realm that people are using, but they wouldn't know it's a testing version of the Walkabout Mini Golf?
Oh, not really. I mean, we do have some groups of different people that we sort of like, that we're testing new courses in, beta testers, all that sort of stuff.
So that would be offline, right?
Yeah, or it's done in a way that it's usually backwards compatible. That that we've got a way of tracking all those notes and implementing all that. But that's very much something that people know about that. It's mostly testing new content. There's always various different things that are, with so many different platforms, there's always, it's like, this feature hasn't been rolled out on that platform quite yet, just because it wasn't quite ready or there was some technical issue. And it's like, well, we're not going to delay the release of this course for another 9 weeks till we get that sorted. So let's just maybe pull that particular feature out of the version. But usually a lot of that stuff is under the hood. Most of the work that we have been doing lately, especially from a tech side of things, are mostly kind of automatic stuff that's happening under the hood and just cleaning up how we do things so that we're able to iterate more efficiently and work better as a team, because this was originally a solo project. So I had coded everything up in a somewhat messy way because it just needed to work and I was the only one touching the code base. So it was fine to do that. Now that we have a team, it's like, okay, we've been going through and cleaning some of that up and doing things in a more industry standard way, and maybe there might be more lines of code, but ultimately it's easier to maintain.
How can people become a tester of Walkabout Mini Golf? Can you let our members know?
Hit us up on the Discord. All of our testing runs through the Discord. I know that at the moment we're full on Quest, but I believe that we are still looking for more people on Pico and PlayStation.
Okay.
So guys, depending on your platform, there's still some opportunities.
Heard it here. You can become his tester. So go to the Discord, which is on your website, right?
Yeah. It's just I don't even remember the link right offhand, but yeah, if you go to walkaboutminigolf.com, it should be one of the top. The Discord link should be one of the top ones there.
Cool. Yeah, I'm just going to the website. So there you go. And then, yeah. So guys, the Discord link is down at the. It might be somewhere else too, but you can see at the bottom of the page there. Also, there you go. Cool. Awesome. So, God, I've lost my train of thought. All right, well, I'll tell you what. Let's do these questions. I actually asked GPT to come up with some fun questions to ask you.
Okay.
We'll do some very easy ones that are fun and nothing serious. Let me just go to I think it's this one here. Okay, is the page reloaded? Boom, boom, boom. Where is it? No, it must be this one here. Where are my questions? Oh, there we go. So these are true or false questions. Let me just go down. Let me find the questions. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. Okay, so before we do the questions, please don't look at your screen if you can see my screen, Lucas.
I can't actually, so.
Okay. Just for the fun of it. Damn, the others can see the screen because I'm streaming on the thing. Never mind. So sorry, guys, if you see the answers. Okay, so question number 1. True or false? Mini golf was originally invented as a secret training method for ninja golfers.
I'm gonna go with false on that one.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, it's false. Question 2, true or false? The world's largest mini golf course can fit an entire city block and has a water hazard that's home to a family or friendly sharks. True or false?
I'm going to go with true.
Well, you're almost there, but apparently it's false.
Okay.
That's pretty funny.
I could see a resort like one of the Atlantis resorts or something having a massive mini golf course with an aquarium.
Yeah, exactly. All right, question 3, true or false? In mini golf, a hole-in-one guarantees you a lifetime supply of cotton candy.
This is what ChatGPT thinks?
Yeah. My prompt was to keep them very funny and witty and light. Okay,
yeah. I mean, I think it's false, but I think ChatGPT probably thinks it's true.
Yeah, it does.
That's I question the vetting a little bit on these.
That's so hilarious. By the way, this is ChatGPT 3 or 3.5, not 4.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Question 4, true or false? Mini golf is a popular intergalactic sport played by aliens on distant planets.
I'm gonna go with. Well, I think that they're probably saying true. I'm gonna go with false.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Come on, chat. You're not.
Oh man, that's so hilarious. Okay, I'll skip the question 5. Go to question 6. True or false? The world record for the longest putt in mini golf is over a mile long. True or false?
False.
Yeah.
Well, it probably thinks it's true, but
No,
false.
it knows it. It says it's false too.
Okay, good.
Do you know what's the longest putt? Just by curiosity.
Well, I know that sort of like a real golfer could drive maybe 380 yards, and that's nowhere close to a mile. So it'd have to be 5 times the longest drive to equal a mile. And where would that happen? So
awesome. Question 8, true or false? In mini golf, playing in a clown suit automatically grants you a +10 bonus on each hole.
I'm going to go with true. Why not? Just embrace the chaos.
Well, it says false, but it does make for a hilarious sight. Yes, that's what it says.
Okay.
Okay.
If you play in the clown suit, we'll give you, house rules. -10.
You changing suits in Walkabout Mini Golf, is that something you're looking to do or not at this point?
We've got the avatars and pretty robust costumes, hats, different, all sorts of different cosmetics that you could do with that. So it's in there. We do not have it's mostly just the head. We haven't done full body, partially as for technical limitations, but also just because even on the creative side of things, we found that the head is the most important, and the body creates all sorts of other problems of being, people standing in the way,
right,
of just, griefing other people. There's a lot of things that come up with it. So we've actually kind of made a conscious decision to keep it that way for the time being.
Cool. I remember with Alt Space, it was hats. That was a big thing over there. Okay, so question 9, true or false? Mini golf courses have secret teleportation portals that can transport players to tropical beach holes.
We do, so technically it's true.
There you go. Yeah, because it's a new form of mini golf, right?
Sure.
All right, let me go to some. So those were your true and false questions. Let me go to the other questions. Wait, let me scroll up. Okay, there we go. What is the official term for hitting the ball off the course and into a nearby water hazard?
Well, that would be out of bounds.
Okay. So ChatGPT says swing and a splash or aquatic excursion.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't know that that's official, but those are terms. They are words.
I told you we were going to test your mini golf knowledge now.
I think this is more about testing ChatGPT's mini golf knowledge than anything else. But
okay, let me ask you another few questions. How do you keep score when playing mini golf against a clown?
Oh, this is a riddle, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. I don't got it.
With a laugh-o-meter. Each giggle adds an extra point. Cute.
Yeah.
Cute. Okay. In mini golf, what is the golfer's favorite excuse for missing an easy putt?
Favorite excuse for missing an easy putt? I'm going to say the green.
The green?
Yeah.
Actually, it came out with two answers. One of them was, that down windmill. So they always blame the windmill, turning. And this one also says, I was mesmerized by the beauty of the plastic flamingo. It threw me off game.
This is more of ChatGPT just sort of like having fun with itself.
I think it is. Okay. When the ball ricochets off 5 obstacles and somehow finds the hole without any human oh no, that's the answer, sorry. In mini golf, what is the maximum number of strokes allowed per hole?
I think 7 is the official standard.
Okay. I think it's having fun with itself again. Too many is called the infinite stroke limit.
Okay, well.
It has to stop at some point. You can't keep. Surely.
This is the Rules of Mini Golf by Douglas Adams.
Right. Okay, so I think those were the last questions for that. Now, there is something I wanted to talk to you about. I don't know whether you have access. Oh, you can probably see my screen. Let me do a screen share very quickly, because I want to show you something that I think is absolutely amazing. Okay, window this, I guess. Okay, you can see us. Can you see my a new screen, a YouTube screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you know a guy called Valem?
No, I don't.
Oh man, you need to meet this guy. He's a developer who does a really cool, awesome YouTube channel, and also he has a Discord. I'll send you the link later. And guys, if you're interested, chat group, if you guys are interested in Valem, I honestly suggest you go and check out his YouTube channel as well. I haven't met him. I haven't spoken to him. I'm trying to get in touch with him. He's actually from France, and he did a video very, very recently, which I really highly recommend you check out. But I'm sure you've looked at other videos as well. This video here is basically all about him creating an NPC using ChatGPT, and he actually created some cues. Let me just skip through. He goes through each single step as to how he was able to create conversations with the NPC using verbal cues that were transformed from text cues into voice, and then voice into text. So that's how he explains the whole thing. So you speak, transforms into voice text, goes into ChatGPT, and then basically it transforms back into text, and then ends up being voice on the other end of the NPC. And depending on the cues that you say, basically it will then create an event where he will say something specific. And you can use an infinite number of different cues to actually have a conversation with him. And he goes as far as using 2 NPCs to actually have a conversation together, which I thought was pretty awesome. So I was just wondering, taking this concept, whether it's something that you're looking to implement at some point, or you're already experimenting with in Walkabout Mini Golf.
I mean, the idea of having a bot in there is definitely something that a couple people have asked for. It's something that we're considering, although I feel like the amount of development time that will take compared to because we have a long list of things that we want to add, and I feel like the number of people who would really enjoy and take advantage of that is a fairly small number of people. So it's not currently at the top of the list, but it's definitely something that is up there. I think more generally, the concept of AI-driven NPCs, that actual, being able to give them context, I think that works really, really well for certain types of games. The idea of it's The Witcher, rather than having bark lines that they've written out and recorded and with a very limited amount. Being able to have more of a conversation with the broader world. I think that the challenge with that is going to be giving enough of a model and enough context to really sort of make sure that those characters don't become too they still need to stay in the background. They still need, while you don't want them sort of inventing, changing canon, or maybe even pointing you in the wrong direction, which are some things that I think that a lot of game designers are going to have, especially more traditional AAA type games, are going to have some challenges there to make sure that the AI sort of stays within some bounds. But it's a really cool idea, and I definitely think that something like that is coming. And we're already starting to see, more and more people playing around with it. It's just a question of, when's it going to get there, and at what point do the tools to build things like that become a little bit more ubiquitous, and it just, easier to access and don't require quite as much sort of piecing it all together. Also, I know the other thing that I've seen too is the delay of that, because currently it's got to analyze, it's got to upload, it's got to get something new down, it's got to synthesize it. So currently there's some awkwardness to it that I think will just go away with better tech.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it very briefly in just a moment. Just want to welcome some new peeps to the chat. Dave K, which I believe Dave, is this Dave from VR Chat? hi there, who works for the community management. I believe he has the same thumbnail, so I'm wondering if that's Dave from there. If it is, hi to you. If it's not, well, hi to you still. And welcome to the chat. He's asking, are you doing any live A/B testing with Walkabout Mini Golf?
We have a few different things. I would say no, not really. Most of the A/B testing, I'm trying to think of the best way. I've never actually had to answer this one. We talked about it a little bit internally, and I think that most of what we are doing, we tend to have a bit more of a curated approach that we look at something, we look at options, and then generally we sort of like think, okay, we like this one better for reasons. And I think that that has actually served us pretty well in that so much of the experience is about kind of creating the best possible version, jump into a game as quickly and easily as possible. So I think that most of that testing happens more internally with our beta group, more focused, and we tend to just sort of like really nail that stuff down and just make the call on which version we want to support. Because truly doing A/B testing, it can be challenging, and if you got people with different sets of, some things work for some people and others don't, especially with a social game like ours, it could start to cause some issues. So I guess that's not exactly a dodge, but yeah, we're not actively doing any A/B testing right now.
And you mentioned now your team's grown to 30 people. From a developer's point of view, who are, of course, very proud of their work. And when you're working on your own at the beginning, like you said you did, you must have thought that, your source code was very precious to you, right? At what point does should a developer start feeling comfortable to share that source code with other people so they actually understand that in the long run, it's all about growing the game?
I mean, I think that for the most part, there might be people on the team who disagree. I have been making a very conscious effort over the last year and a half, basically, as folks have come on board, to start handing over the keys. I think the trick with being a solo developer is that there are a lot of details that people might not realize, like, oh, the way that a certain interaction is done a certain way is because there's this very specific use case. Mm-hmm. And if it's not spelled out in black and white, there's literally the game was probably, there were hundreds of those that were in there. So like, oh, it was done this way because some people try to hold the controller like this. And you can either explicitly tell them not to do that, or if you just tell them how to do things a very specific way, it doesn't happen. But if you change it, now suddenly that little hack that was in there that made things work smoothly before doesn't exist. So I think that that's the challenge as going from a solo developer to a full team, is just sort of like all that domain knowledge and the things that I had maybe implemented just because it felt right or any of that stuff. So it's been a process, but now I'm pretty much out of the code side almost entirely and focusing more on how does it look, how does it feel, how's the interaction and stuff like that. So it's always going to be a process, and different people are going to feel more or less comfortable about it. But we've hit a point that we just have to have more people, and a lot of that does come down to having enough time to train up the people and just having them get in there and giving enough room for people to actually break some of those things, mm-hmm. while also having enough time to catch them and fix them. It's just part of it that you have to kind of go through a bit of those growing pains to get to this point.
Do you have a secret boss level, a secret Lucas Martel in a Walkabout Mini Golf that others can't access?
I mean, because we're of how we develop courses, we almost always have another dozen or so courses that are either playable or at least like you can actually get in and walk around a little bit because we're developing them. So much of our time is spent focusing on at least on the developer side, so much of our time is spent focusing on those levels that are coming up. So yeah, there's 12 of those levels that are when we do a custom build of the game for ourselves that we're in there testing. And yeah, we've got some courses that won't even be coming out until the end of 2024 that are already in there and you can already walk around and start to play. So that's just the nature of how development works.
Any hidden gems in there that no one you think would virtually be able to find, but they're hidden somewhere and they do something?
There's definitely a lot of Easter eggs that people have put in. There are, so there's a lot of those details. Like, I don't think that any of that is necessarily like functional. Like, there's no cheat codes, there's nothing like that. But there's definitely some secret areas and some just secret items that, you know, one of the other developers thought was a fun little addition. So we went ahead and dropped that in, or in some cases we've even given, most of the team has, you know, within reason, they can, you know, kind of carte blanche to get in, and if like, oh, it'd be really funny to do this. Like, as long as you're not, you know, breaking any rules or doing something that is going to offend somebody, then yeah, it's pretty open for people to be dropping in those Easter eggs.
What are some of the wildest things you've witnessed from players inside of Walkabout Mini Golf?
It's definitely been interesting seeing the trick shots. Has been super cool, and seeing some of the crazy shots that people have not only come up with, but then even like perfected to a point that, like, oh yeah, bouncing off the tree up there is actually like a valid sort of like strat for like a tournament level, you know? So just like the, I think how good some of the players are, and how much time has definitely been one of the most surprising things. I think also just more generally, what's surprising to me is just how much it's taken off and how it's getting used for a lot of other things. Like, there's people that are using it for, you know, like that's how they keep in touch with friends and family. And there's some people who are actually using it for business meetings, and just a lot of different use cases, I think, that were never intended, but that people have gradually just found like interesting things that they can do that even just with the tools that are already in there has been really fascinating to see.
Cool. I have a question from, sorry if I butcher your name, Jamoe. Hi, thank you for coming to the chat. He's asking, is it difficult developing for all the different VR display panels?
The display panels, not so much, because most of that is handled at the system level, and that we need to sort of like set a few properties whenever we add in a new panel, make sure that things are working correctly, and that we're doing the resolution in a way that the headset can handle. We do try to render a little bit higher than the resolution if at all possible, but some just don't have the horsepower to do that. So that doesn't really change. That's all pretty much handled at the as part of the hardware itself. We just need to basically we just need to build for that device. So it's not that big of a challenge, but there is some other challenges just that come from all of the different headsets, and especially all the different OSs that they're running.
Are you looking to create a Walkabout Mini Golf Academy?
Ooh, I guess you mean like for people wanting to just get better at playing the game or something like that. You know, we kind of have something like that through the Discord. There's a decent number of people who will even like say, hey, I'm gonna do a game, like, oh, I wanted to show someone how to do something, so if anyone wants to hop in, if you're on the Discord, you can find a lot of those. And there's also I was just reading on Reddit, someone was asking like, oh yeah, how to put together a larger game, and got pointed towards the Discord. And the comment was that, you know, just mini golf is fantastic because it doesn't matter whether the person you're playing against is way better or way worse than you, because really you're trying to improve your own score. And so I think that's one of the reasons that the community has been so positive. But if you hop in with someone who is a way better player than you, you will quickly see some different approaches. They'll usually walk you through like, oh, I do it this way because that, or like, you know, swinging from the shoulders, or like
That's
even
awesome.
giving little tips and tricks. So I think a lot of that kind of happens organically. The idea of doing it in a more structured way is definitely interesting. There's a decent number of content creators out there who do have a lot of videos out there, like, oh, how to improve your game, how to, you know, tips and tricks, both for specific courses as well as just generally.
Cool. And what some of the community activities that you're developing to try to get more people to know more about Walkabout Mini Golf and to try Walkabout Mini Golf?
I mean, a lot of it does come down to, I mean, social media. One of the reasons that we are launching as many DLCs as we are is that every time we launch a DLC, like some people see it, that if the game were just stagnant and it weren't being actively built upon with new stuff coming out, I think that people would gradually fall off over time. So a lot of it is just that. It's the fact that this is a very active game that we're constantly doing new, better, more fantastical worlds is honestly like probably the biggest thing that we're actively doing. Then there's always, there's various contents, there's tournaments, there's I think that we're limited more by just the number of people who are in VR, I would say, than anything else. So we're in some ways we're definitely one of the first experiences that I think that a lot of people have in VR, because it's a very comfortable, very quick to get in. You don't have to sort of spend too much time setting it up. Just get the headset on. Here's a controller. Push the trigger button to go to your ball. That's all you need to know. So it's a very, very it gets used a lot for first timers, I think.
So last question before the last question. I went recently to a trade fair where it was all about theme parks. So all the people that were there is all theme park stuff. And I got to try a lot of 5D, I think it's called, and also interactive screens where they try to recreate VR but without the VR headset. And that was phenomenal. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. So I'm just curious whether that is also a direction you're looking to go into, where you could access Walkabout, Walkabout Mini Golf, but outside of a VR context. So you're actually in a room, it's projected onto the walls in a VR 360 environment, and you could actually, using hand tracking or whatever, or even the controller as a tracker or something, play Walkabout Mini Golf. Is that something you're looking to do, or are you just focusing purely on VR for now?
We're focused mainly on VR. So two short answers. So as far as like a very bespoke sort of like in a custom room, that's interesting. It just seems like that is so custom and would require so much development work for the three people that would ever have something like that, that is likely not. Now, if someone came to us and said, hey, we want to put this into a theme park and here's how we want to do it, it's like, okay, maybe that might start to justify it. But that to me feels more like a novelty at the moment that works very much in that theme park space, but not for a game like ours. We are working on the mobile version of the game, which does kind of what you're talking about, but essentially you sort of like you're kind of looking around your room because it's actually using the camera to track. And then when you want to putt, you actually just physically putt with the device. And so it works surprisingly well.
You see a Walkabout Mini Golf scene, or is it mixed reality, augmented reality?
It's actually, you're just seeing the Walkabout Mini Golf scene. So we're using the camera to track, but that really all that's doing is giving us a full 6 DOF tracker, essentially. But your camera and the club are one. But the cool thing is that it's also cross-play with the VR headset. So if you've got one headset and maybe you don't have enough for everybody to play,
that's great.
A couple people can hop on the phone and you'll actually see them. You can do voice chat and everything with it. So it's, we're hoping that finds an audience. And I think that there's a lot of people, like I mentioned, who might only have like one headset in the house that they all want to get together and play. Like that might be a really, really good way that you could still do a full family game night without having 4 different headsets.
Yeah, that sounds really amazing. And also, companies like Hologate, how they give the license of a game and the game is made in a way where it's specific to that space. So is that something you're looking to branch out into as well? So you have Walkabout Mini Golf spaces for people like Hologate, or Hologate could do it too. I mean, they're doing Ghostbuster stuff, and also theme parks where you can have a Walkabout Mini Golf area dressed up in Walkabout Mini Golf, crazy, adventurous, surreal kind of Harry Potter-ish thing, and then you put the VR headset on and you're actually walking through the environment as opposed to standing still, right? Is that something you're looking to branch into, or not at this moment in time?
I mean, I would say so. All of that LBE, location-based entertainment, is sort of like that umbrella term for theme parks and arcades and all that sort of stuff. We are getting Walkabout into more of those places as the current version. It's one of those things that I wouldn't say no to any of those things. It just depends on whether there's a lot of development time that goes into that. So it would have to be a pretty sizable
Right.
investment just in not only the software but also the physical spaces and someone to actually operate that space. So a lot of that I think comes down more to the actual, the LBE sort of venue, and if they're wanting to do something like that, we're talking to several different people, but with where we're at right now, it's mostly just the VR version in more like a VR arcade seems to be the most popular thing at the moment.
Sky's the limit with Walkabout Mini Golf. To be honest, it's such an amazing game, and it really does take you places. There's a reason why. It was the top 2 most popular, or top 5 or something on Steam or something. I mean, it was crazy,
it's up there. It's one of the more popular ones on all the platforms. So yeah, we feel really lucky that we launched when we did in the manner that we did, and I feel like we just kind of, in a way, we kind of stumbled onto sort of something that I don't think, definitely didn't expect it to get as large as it has.
Yeah. And last question. So what can you tell us that you're working on that you're not supposed to talk about, but you can kind of let us know here on VR Essentials?
Okay. Let's see. I can't really sort of like give too much away, but I mean, the biggest thing is courses. We're working on a lot more courses. We've also got several more features that are in development. I don't know if we've said it officially, but we are working on, some leaderboards and some ways of doing more tournaments, and just generally trying to create more sort of like in-game, official, easy to use ways to sort of like make it easier for people who are using the game in a very specific way, so that if you're hosting a tournament, we'd love to add the ability that you could just set it up, do score tracking, and find a way that you could sort of like do all of that within the game. Seems like a definite sort of area that we are focusing on. Not sure exactly when all that stuff is going to come out, but there's always more features and more content that we're actively working on.
Actually, last question. Do you prefer to play Walkabout Mini Golf on PC VR or standalone? And why?
I probably do it about 50-50. I mean, it's nice not having the cable. It's nice being able to like.
Such a diplomatic answer.
Yeah, no, but I do actually spend a lot of time, because most of the time I'm playing it through the editor.
Okay.
So I'm already tethered and everything, so I'm pretty comfortable either way. It is really nice to just sort of, I think that I probably enjoy it most standalone, because that's one of the few times that I'm actually like in the game and not just sort of like hopping in and out and fixing stuff and just noodling on things. So it's really nice to actually get a chance to like play a full round from start to finish, which happens less than it should, I think, for me as a developer.
Well, what's your go-to PC VR headset for comfort, as you spend so much time in it when you're working?
I'm still using the Quest 2 just because, again, it's sort of like it's less.
You mean with the link cable?
Yeah, I'm just using the link cable for everything.
Right. Okay, got you.
But a lot of that is also that, between here and we've got a small office, or sometimes if I'm traveling, just like it's so convenient to have the one headset that
right.
That
so you use it both for your PC VR and for your standalone experience.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's just it's super handy. But yeah, I've actually given away all of the dedicated PC ones just because the QA team actually needs all of those.
Right.
So they've got the G2, they've got the Index, they've got the Rift CV1, they've got all of those other flavors.
It's like a museum over there.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just
cool.
a wall of all of the different options that they can because they do need to be testing on everything.
Last question of the last, I promise. What's the VR game that you like to, or VR experience that you like to immerse yourself in when you're not working on Walkabout Mini Golf?
Let's see. So Gravity Sketch is definitely
that's not related
the one that I'm using the
Walkabout
most.
Mini Golf.
But that's more of an actual. We're actually using that to work on it, obviously.
Yes.
I think the game that I probably liked the most from the last 6 months or so, maybe this is even a little bit longer, was Last Clockwinder. That had a really awesome mechanic of just how you were sort of cloning yourself. So yeah, the Last Clockwinder is one that I've played more recently. I'm trying to think of other ones that I've played more recently. Moss. Yeah, Moss. I played book 2 not too long ago. I still need to get in and play. I have a long library of things that I've also got 2 young kids. So between work and the kids, I actually don't get that many opportunities to hop into VR.
Right.
So yeah, I'm trying to think of a couple of the other ones that I've played more recently. Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, that when I get a little bit of time, usually I spend so much of my day in VR just working that, yeah, usually going out into nature is my. I'm always struggling to find a few minutes to get out and actually get a walk in or something
Yeah, of
like that.
course.
So
Definitely, that's really important.
I
We're
wish
looking-
I wish I had a better answer for that. But yeah,
No,
Last
it's fine.
Clockwinder I would
It's all
highly
good.
recommend for everybody.
It's all good. Lucas, thank you so much for coming to VR Essentials. It's lovely to have you here. You're always welcome to come back, of course. And really looking forward to so much more of what's coming out that creative genius head there into the game with your team. Yeah. So again, thank you very much, guys. And that's is there anything else you want to share with us before we end the interview?
No, that's it. Just thanks for having me, and yeah,
Welcome.
keep playing. I'll see you next time.
Cool. All right, Lucas. Well, I'll wave you goodbye, and I'll chat you. And also I want to thank David because he managed to get us together, and this guy is amazing as well. Really friendly guy. He's always been so responsive, and I know the time difference sometimes is quite hard to communicate. But yeah, he's done a really good job. So thank you, David, if you're watching or if you're not.
Yeah, thank you, David. David is our head of comms and does all of our marketing and all of the press stuff. So yeah, thank you, David.
Yeah, he's done a really, really good job. All right, Lucas, thank you very much. I shall see you next time, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Take care.
Bye for now. So guys, there you have it. Lucas Martel, who is the creator and lead developer, also and CEO of Walkabout Mini Golf. And really lovely to have him on the channel. It's the second time now. If you want to know more about like how he got into it, how he created it, we went more in depth about that. We did a live stream about a year plus ago, so you can go and find that on the VR Essentials YouTube channel, which I believe if I go to the channel here, so let me go to my channel. We're gonna read some comments, guys, to close the live stream before we stop the live stream. And guys, if you want me to do more AMAs and stuff, please hit the likes as a way to thank him. Please hit the likes, please hit the share this stream everywhere you possibly can if it's possible, to let more people know about it and to come and watch it as well. And also hit the notification bell after you subscribe, as I will be doing more AMAs. And do leave your suggestions as to who you would like me to approach to try and interview. Leave the names of the game developer studios or the game studios or VR studios or hardware manufacturers or a name of someone. Also, perhaps you want me to try and get them on the show. Nothing's impossible, guys. Sky's the limit. I'll reach for Mars for you. No worries. We can make it happen. It just takes time sometimes. Maybe I'll talk with someone for 6 months before it happens. Sometimes it happens like that. So you never know. I can try. No worries about that. So you can go to the live section and then you'll find him an interview. I believe it was called Meta Business Meta or something. It was a completely different name. As you now know, my AMAs are called Party Chats, which are very, very different to Meta. Anyway, it's somewhere in there, guys, in one of the live streams that I had done before. All right, guys, so let's read some comments from all of you, and do leave your comments below if there's any questions you have. Do leave them. Let me just read the chat very quickly. James says Douglas Adams would say 42 in the stroke limit. Yes, very funny. Glad that Dave, that's the Dave I know, so thank you very much for coming to the stream, Dave, and hope to have your team on the EMA. That would be great as well. EP says it's like the phone is a window into the VR world. Yeah, that's right. So he was talking about how he's developing something with Walkabout Mini Golf using the phone, so people with the phone can join in with the VR as well. So you have both phone users and VR users playing together, which I thought was very, very interesting. Hamel says, I've been begging for a last Clockwinder course. I would love that to be a collaboration. Okay, I'll definitely let him know in my post email that I will send to him as a suggestion from you, Hamel. Thank you very much. So let me just go and read some of the comments from you guys. Let me go to YouTube Studio. Here we go. Let me go to comments. And okay, so this was about the video Pico 4 best audio tips, Bluetooth versus USB-C. 3.5 jack adapter. Let me just make it bigger so you guys can read. Black Synth says, so the audio ports in the straps are actually very, very good. The problem is they rest away from your ears. If you cup your hand over the strap and your ears, it's fantastic. So this weekend I'm designing and 3D printing in a rubber clip on convex shields that cup that area over your ears. Oh, awesome. Well, Black Synth, after you do your 3D printing, send us a picture. That would be awesome. Okay, next, new virtual. Oh, so there was a new virtual desktop, update very recently. So I made a video about that. George Cardell says, can't use finger tracking in VR chat anymore. Or if any of you have the same problem, I'm not quite sure which headset he's talking about, though, if he's talking about the Quest 2. Has it been fixed? If it's the Quest 2 or the Pico 4, or maybe, I don't know, maybe even the PCVR. So if you guys have the same issue or not, Nintendo Convert 4045 from New Virtual Desktop Update video says, Virtual Desktop with the HEVC codec and SSW is freaking amazing. Project Cars 3 is a slog in VR for most people, but running at half the frame rate with SSW and with the clarity of HEVC, I can run this game on ultra settings with a smooth experience. AirLink can't come anywhere close to the performance, clarity, and reliability of Virtual Desktop. Well, that's really awesome. So, guys, have you seen any improvements with Virtual Desktop after the update? I haven't tried it yet. I will try it over the weekend, though. Japan store uses VR to control robots. Oh, guys, you got to go and watch that video. It's really awesome. Yeah, so that was about that. It is. All right, and I'll read one more comment. I do read all your comments, guys, and I do try to respond to every single comment. So when you comment, be sure that I have actually read it. Okay, so 4BK Survivor plays Twitch 770. That's a hell of a name. I need help. I tried to Steam Virtual Desktop with Quest 2. Side quest stream on TikTok audio Quest 2 is gone and stream is echoing sound. Not virtual desk game is okay, but no mic. So guys, have you had any issues with your Virtual Desktop update? Has it been fixed? And also, if you know the actual answer to any of people's comments or problems or anything like that, do reply to the comments. Do try to help the community. I don't have a Discord yet. I believe that if I have a Discord, I'm not quite sure if people would join it at this moment in time, but maybe I'll start a Discord at some point, and then we can all join. We can all help each other more directly as opposed to replying to each other's comments. But yeah, guys, this is it for today's AMA. Sorry again for the delay for those who came. Very interesting. Do rewind back, go back into the live stream if you missed the interview with Lucas Martel. Absolute top guy. He's been here twice and he loves to talk about what he does, and it's just amazing the amount of stuff that you get to learn from him. I also want to give a shout out to Skiva. Thank you very much for the key from Ghost of Tabor and also Between Realities and so thank you very much, Skiva, for the key. I will be trying Ghost of Tabor. They will be coming to the channel at some point. Between Realities with Alex VR will be coming to the channel as well at some point. And I'm talking, of course, to other people as well to get them onto the channel. So do hit the notification bell after you subscribe, guys. Guys, you've been absolutely awesome. Thank you very much for the interactions in the chat. Thank you for joining today's chat. I will see you in another video very, very soon. See you later, guys. Take it easy. Bye for now. Bye for now.